Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
All right, and welcome to the GSMC Football Podcast. This episode is brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. And as always, I am your host, Jesse Tapia. All right, what is it? Day what? It's got to be day something without football. I forgot. Did we even do that on the last show? Man, I'm slipping. Let's see. Super Bowl was February 3rd. We got 7, 14, 21, 28, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, day 40 without football, all right? It is day 40. And you know what? I think I forgot to do it last time because free agency has been on my mind the entire time, or I forgot that football was gone. But it is day 40 since our last football game that we were able to watch, okay? Most of us have gone to the living rooms, turned on the PS4s or Xbox 360, or not Xbox 360s, the Xbox Ones, put in Madden, and have been playing that way, right? Been playing through our favorite teams. I'm sure we've won many Super Bowls already, but either way, that is not reality. Reality is we've been 40 days without an actual football game, but we're getting through it. Free agency has kind of been a distraction for us from the fact that the Super Bowl was February 3rd. And was the Super Bowl February 3rd? I think it was. Either way, though, all right, day 40 without football. Here we are. Free agency still going on. This is how the show is going to go. We're going to be talking Oakland Raiders for this first segment. They've made some moves. Going to talk a little bit about the AFC West too, just with the moves the Raiders have made. Talk about that. We're going to be talking about those Miami Dolphins. All right, made some more moves, cut some players. We're going to talk about pretty much looking like they finally have a plan. All right, looking like they finally might know what they're doing. So we'll be talking about that. For the third segment, we talked about all the teams that signed quarterbacks on Tuesday, but those teams still need backups. Those teams still need rookie quarterbacks. Some of those quarterbacks are only there for a couple of seconds until the other guys are ready to get going as far as the rookies go. So we'll talk about what those teams are going to be doing. We'll be doing that. Fourth segment, we'll be talking about pretty much anything else going on in football, whether it be other teams in free agency or anything like that. News, notes, we got Colin Kaepernick in Houston with a private workout. Not with the Houston Texans. He's in the city of Houston having a private workout. I mean, why would you fly all the way to Houston to work out and throw the football? I don't know. Tom Savage signed with a different team. Maybe that means something. Maybe that means Colin Kaepernick might be getting brought in to sign with the Houston Texans, possibly. I don't know. Maybe. Who knows? We'll see. So we'll be talking about that. We'll be talking about, like I said, anything else going on in football. So that's how the show is going to go. We got Raiders, Dolphins, AFC West, AFC East probably we'll talk about. Jets will be falling in. You know, we're probably not even going to talk much about the AFC East because the Jets and Bills, we'll be talking about them in the third segment since they still need rookie quarterbacks. So we'll be doing that. Maybe we'll fit the Patriots in with the segment with the Dolphins. Who knows? I don't know. I like to wing it. So that's what we'll be doing today. All right, so let's get it started. Oakland Raiders. Remember John Gruden's press conference? We're going to take it back to 1998. I don't like technology. I don't like GPS. I don't like analytics. Pretty much old man yells at cloud type of idea thing. All right, so yeah, we remember that. Turns out that's what John Gruden's trying to do. All right, he's yelling at clouds. And I don't know. John Gruden's made some moves so far, and I'm not really too sure how I feel about them. John Gruden's literally gotten older with the players he's brought in, and he's making the team pretty much an older version of what an NFL team should be now. All right, so let's get it going. What should we talk about first? Should we talk about them bringing in Doug Martin? Yeah, let's talk about them bringing in Doug Martin. All right, so John Gruden signed Doug Martin. Well, John Gruden, Reggie McKenzie, doesn't matter. I'm sure John Gruden had some input into who's coming in. So Doug Martin is now going to become an Oakland Raider. All right, Doug Martin, I mean, was a good running back for his first few years in Tampa Bay. Since then, really just been on the decline. All right, really hadn't done too much. So now, pretty much, he's going to be in Oakland, and I don't know how I feel about that, all right? Because Oakland's offensive line, I feel, last season took a step back. But nonetheless, I mean, it's not like they're a bad offensive line by any means. Maybe it's just, like I said, it was just a bad season for everyone on that team. Maybe they pick it up this year, kind of like a Denver Broncos type thing, all right? With Denver, you had the defense who played poorly. I mean, Demaryius Thomas played all right. C.J. Anderson had nearly 1,000 yards. But as a whole, the team just wasn't playing well at all, all right? So maybe it's just one of those ordeals, all right? The Raiders, the whole team didn't play well last season. Maybe the offensive line picks it up this season. Maybe that's just what it is. And if that's the case, I mean, Doug Martin, he still has talent. It's not like he's a talentless running back who's like in his mid-30s, who pretty much is on the downfall, going to be his last couple of years in the league. No, Doug Martin still has time to, I don't want to say revive his career or anything like that, but he still has time to be a productive running back in this league. All right, I think he'll be fine with the Raiders because, like I said, I think the offensive line will take a step back forward compared to how they were last year. All right, so you got that. And what exactly does that mean for Marshawn Lynch? Does that mean Marshawn Lynch is gone or is he staying? If Marshawn Lynch is gone, I mean, nice little career for him. I wouldn't see anyone else picking him up, but he's not gone. He's going to be with the Raiders still. All right, Mike Silver reported that their plan is pretty much for the Raiders to go with a little 1-2 duo with Martin and Lynch, and I'm fine with that. I mean, Marshawn Lynch is a good running back. Okay, last season started off kind of slow. It was more so Jack Del Rio had a type of offense he was trying to run, and Lynch just didn't fit into that offense. Okay, they just didn't. Towards the end of the season, where Lynch was starting to get the ball a whole lot more, that's where you saw Lynch being more productive. And like I said, it's just the offense they were trying to run. You guys like what's his name? DeAndre Washington, I think. Is it DeAndre Washington? That guy on the team. You got Jalen Richard. All right, those guys more had a better fit on that offense than a guy like Marshawn Lynch did. It's more so quick pace, fast, dynamic type offense. And now with the Raiders, it's looking like now that they signed a fullback, gave $4.2 million to, I believe it was, signed 2 blocking tight ends also, I believe. Looks like they're trying to be the smash mouth type football teams, pretty much like what we used to see. All right, John Gruden is literally trying to take it back to '98. Okay, and that's cool and all, but I mean, as far as it all goes, coaches pretty much who are older, like now it's starting to turn into a young coaches league. Sean McVay, Doug Peterson's actually kind of old. Maybe I'm just, let's see, Sean McVay, who else is young in this league right now? I don't know, actually I might be wrong. Sean McVay might be the only exception there. But either way, John Gruden's an old guy. All right, John Fox last year pretty much coached his last year in the NFL, I feel. No one's going to be hiring him for a head coaching job. Jeff Fisher's done. So pretty much what I'm trying to get at, like these older guys, these guys that were in the mid-2000s who were successful, all right, they aren't really around anymore. Now, so this is the new generation of coaches, all right? It's not those mid-2000 guys is what I was trying to get at. So now that makes sense. So with John Gruden pretty much trying to take it back a bit, I mean, it's kind of, I don't know, unnerving, kind of worrisome, all right? Because of the fact that this league isn't what it used to be, all right? Everyone likes to say the NFL is a league where you got, it's a parody. Everyone's copying each other. And with John Gruden trying to go back in time and trying to change everything up, I mean, coaches really aren't successful when they try doing that, and I'm not sure John Gruden is going to be here. I mean, I do like the fact that Doug Martin and Marshawn Lynch are going to be on the same team. I think they're both really good running backs, so, I mean, it'll work out that way. But with John Gruden, I mean, he made other moves too. He's bringing in Jordy Nelson for a 2-year contract, cutting Michael Crabtree. I don't like that move one bit. All right, the only reason why I see Crabtree getting cut is if he was like a locker room distraction and just didn't fit in there at all. All right, and even then, I mean, go out and get someone else better than Jordy Nelson. They're both possession receivers. All right, Jordy Nelson last year was non-existent, didn't play well at all. Okay, just didn't. And I don't know how John Gruden really expects him to go out and play well with his Raiders team. All right. And even then, so like I said, Michael Crabtree, Jordy Nelson, not really too different. Jordy Nelson's probably a little bit faster than Crabtree, but Crabtree is the newer version of a possession receiver, right? That's a guy you look for on third down. It's a guy you look for when you're in the red zone. That's exactly what Oakland, that's exactly what Derek Carr did, all right? If Derek Carr is supposed to be your future, then you keep the guys he's most comfortable with, and I feel like Crabtree was one of those guys, all right? Like I said, you don't look to a guy on third down or in the red zone time after time, and literally when I say time after time, that's literally it. All right? I remember watching Raiders games where you see them in the red zone within the 10-yard line. If it's a pass 3 times in a row, it's going 3 times in a row to Crabtree. All right, he continuously looked for him. So with Gruden getting rid of a guy like that, I mean, he's probably trying to have Nelson be that guy that Carr looks to time after time. And I just think that Nelson's career is, at least his better years, his good years, are past him. All right, I don't really see what Nelson brings to this team unless he just had one down year and that's it. All right, he's going to pick it up this year. I just don't see it. If you're bringing in one, if you want a possession receiver, then it's Crabtree. You don't bring in a guy like Jordy Nelson, who's already 33. All right, dude's already taken a step back. I'm not sure if Gruden thinks he's going to take a step forward and play well again. It just wouldn't make sense to me there. So with the Raiders bringing in Nelson and cutting Crabtree, I don't like that move at all. All right, and I'm kind of like with the Raiders. I mean, all this could work, but it's just a matter of I doubt it will. Okay, I'm not sure if the Raiders have gotten any better so far in free agency. I mean, Doug Martin, does that really make you a better team? Jordy Nelson, does that make you a better team? No. If anything, the Raiders got worse as far as the receiving corps go. Okay, that whole team dealt with drops. It's not like it was just a Michael Crabtree problem. It was more so an Amari Cooper problem because that's the guy who dropped the most balls that year, I believe. All right. So you bring in a guy like Jordy Nelson. I mean, yeah, the guy's got hands, but it's just a matter of he's old. All right. Are the Raiders trying to win now, or are they trying to rebuild, or what's going on here? Okay. I'm not really sure what they got going on. Honestly, I'm talking in circles a bit right here. I just don't understand what Jordy Nelson coming in does for your team, honestly. All right? He's got a name. That's it. He's like in the NBA when the Cavs brought in Derrick Rose and Dwayne Wade. People are like, oh, they brought those guys in. They're going to be good. No, those are just names now. All right? The talent that they had left them. It's not there anymore. And maybe I'm just wrong, and maybe Jordy Nelson can bring it back, but I just don't see how bringing in Jordy Nelson helps your team at all. He's just a name. All right? If he was still good, the Packers wouldn't have cut him. All right? That was Aaron Rodgers' go-to year after year. All right? There's a reason why they cut him. There's a reason why they let him go. All right? And I get they signed Jimmy Graham and they cut him right after, but either way, you got Randall Cobb, who's making just about the same. Randall Cobb, who's even taking a step back too, but they chose to get rid of Jordy. So I just don't understand why you bring in a guy like him to the Raiders. But either way, they did. All right, and I mean, it's just a matter of now Carr's got to make it work. And Carr's coming off of a bad year. But again, I'll say it time and time again. I think Carr's bad year was just more so due to the fact that the dude came back from a fractured back injury after missing only 1 week. You can't do that, right? I understand that the Raiders are trying to win before they move to Vegas, but honestly, forget Oakland right now. You got to move towards the future. I don't want to see him leave Oakland, but it is what it is, so you got that. And as far as the Raiders' place in the AFC West right now, they're no better than the Chiefs. They don't come close to the Chargers, and they're no better than the Broncos. All right, Chargers are by far the best team in that division. It's not close. You got Phillip Rivers, who's still playing at a high level. Melvin Gordon's a top 10 running back. Tyrell Williams and Keenan Allen are both very good receivers. You got Hunter Henry, who could very well become a top 5 tight end this year. You got a nice little offensive line. The defense, first time in a while that they've had a solid defense. All right, so I'm really excited for what they got going on there. As far as the Denver Broncos go, I think the defense is going to play a whole lot better than they did last season. You got Demaryius Thomas, Emmanuel Sanders, CJ Anderson could stay there since you don't got to pay Case Keenum a whole bunch of money, and that's the thing right there. They got their quarterback in Case Keenum, so it's going to be interesting to see how much better Denver is, and I think they're going to be a whole lot better than what they were last season. And with the Chiefs, it's all depending on Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes comes out slinging the ball, playing extremely well. They're one of the best teams in the division too. Right now, it's just there's a whole bunch of uncertainty with the Raiders. I mean, they still have no defense. You bring in old man Nelson. All right, Doug Martin didn't really move the needle for me there, so I don't know. I'm kind of curious to see what's going on with Oakland here, but that's all I got to say about that. Next up, we're going to be talking about the Miami Dolphins. Going to talk about the Patriots maybe a tiny bit, so we'll see. But either way, that's going to wrap it up for this segment. Stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Alright, and welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. We spent that first segment basically just talking about the Oakland Raiders. Alright, Like I said, John Gruden, in his press conference, said, like technology, doesn't like GPS, doesn't like analytics, and he's showing that. I mean, I don't know. I don't get why you're bringing in Jordy Nelson. That makes absolutely no sense to me. That's a guy in the broadcast booth type move. That's a guy who pretty much just tries to talk the guy up just to make a story there. I do not get the whole bringing Jordy Nelson in. Does it not make you better? Going from Crabtree to Nelson makes you worse. All right, I just do not get it whatsoever. But nonetheless, it's a move John Gruden made. And again, he's the head coach of that team, so he's got to be knowing something more than I do. I mean, I'm just the guy who's here to talk about it all. But either way, I just don't like the move whatsoever. All right, bringing in Doug Martin, that's cool. I don't think that makes you better necessarily, but I don't think bringing in Jordy Nelson makes you good at all. If anything, it just makes you worse since you cut Crabtree. So, I don't know. Maybe Gruden's got a plan, but he's got to fix up that defense before we can even talk about anything going on with the Raiders. So, talked about that. This segment, we're going to be talking Miami Dolphins. All right. This team has been pretty active throughout free agency. And, I mean, at one point it was like, what's this team doing? What are they cutting all these guys? Why are they bringing in these guys? Aren't they trying to rebuild? Wait, are they trying to win now? It's been all confusing, okay? The whole Miami Dolphins team since Dan Marino retired has just been a big old confusion, like just all confusing. All right, you never really know what their plan is, what they have in store. They'll throw money at whoever they want. All right, they'll bring in the big name players, sign them to a bunch of contracts. They don't work out, so they end up cutting them. And it's just been one big whole, I don't know what you call it. It's just been bad, okay? This team has been bad, gone through about 17, 18 quarterbacks since Marino retired. I think even on one segment a couple weeks back, we tried naming all the quarterbacks. And there's been no direction. They've been mediocre, all right? Pretty much a team in purgatory, all right? So now I think we're starting to get some clarity with it, okay? Because they traded Jarvis Landry for a 4th-round pick this year, 7th-round pick next year, okay? They cut Ndamukong Suh, and with Suh, let's talk about him for a bit, okay? Started off his career with Detroit, was a monster, best defensive tackle in the league, becomes a free agent, and it's pretty much a bidding war between Oakland, Detroit, and Miami. Miami ends up winning that bidding war, and they bring him on. Kind of at the time was like, Miami talking like, we're gonna turn the corner here. This is gonna be the time where we start becoming a good team and all that. And that was the plan, all right. And that just didn't work out. Suh by far was the best player on that team during his time with Miami, but just did not affect the wins and losses part of the game. And I don't know if you could really put that on a defensive tackle, just because of the fact that it is a defensive tackle, and defensive tackles really do not affect wins and losses unless they're very dominant, and even then, so it's pretty difficult. But either way, I mean, it just didn't work out. All right, it was a huge contract Miami was taking on. Would have had to pay him like $26 million, I think, this year if they would have kept him. So they chose that they were better off getting rid of him and cutting him, saving some money. I think they saved like 19, 16 million, something like that, some weird number. Okay, so they did that, and it's not like that's the first time that they've paid a guy like that. All right, remember Mike Wallace gave him a huge contract, and Mike Wallace with Miami, there was talk about how he just didn't work out there. And I guess as far as locker room goes and his relationship with Tannehill, yeah, but Mike Wallace, his first year had, I think, the most receptions of his career. And then the second year, he had a career high in touchdowns. So Mike Wallace, the whole thing not working with him was more so just the fact that he ran a deep route. Tannehill couldn't connect with him. All right, that's all it was. I think the whole Mike Wallace not working out in Miami was a bit overblown. Okay, so that didn't work out. I mean, who else have they signed to big contracts? I have to go down the line, look it up. But either way, those two guys come up off the top of my head, since those are probably the two biggest contracts they've given out in the last 5-6 years. All right, Mike Wallace only lasted in Miami for 2 years. I think Suh was there for 3 years again. 3 years, I think. You'd have to double check it. But either way, just did not work out. All right, and I mean, even then, so they cut him. They traded Jay Ajayi mid-season this past year, and then you got Mike Pouncey, who, for the most part, I guess you could say, was a good center for that team, but just couldn't stay healthy. All right, he's been dealing with a hip problem for the last couple of years, and pretty much just is a liability on the field because of all the penalties he takes, okay? So they cut him, and now it's pretty much like, what is Miami got going on here? All right, and Miami making all these moves has pretty much scared fans off a bit, pretty much saying, yeah, this is going to be a bad year. We're rebuilding. And then they go out and they start signing players, right? They bring in Danny Amendola. They bring in Albert Wilson. They sign Josh Sitton, right? They replace Mike Pouncey by trading for San Francisco center Daniel Kilgore, swapping 7th-round picks with the 49ers too. All right, so they're doing that. All right, you trade for Robert Quinn, okay? And it's pretty much, like I said, just what exactly do they have in mind? All right, or like at one point it's like, oh yeah, they're trying to rebuild, and trading for a guy like Robert Quinn and bringing in all those other signings is like, okay, no, they're trying to win now. And let's put it this way, okay, the guys they brought in, those aren't flashy names. Okay, Robert Quinn, I guess, is the flashiest name from the guy that they brought, from the people that they brought in. But Robert Quinn, the last couple of years, really hasn't been what he was when he first got that contract. And more so, I think that has to do with injuries and the fact that he wasn't in the right scheme. All right, Wade Phillips comes in. Quinn becomes an outside linebacker in a 3-4 scheme on defense, and Quinn had, 8.5 sacks this year and was struggling still. Now that he's with Miami, he's going to be playing in a 4-3 defense, can be a defensive end, is without a doubt going to be the starter. All right, and one thing too, actually I'll get into it in a little bit, but going to be the starter, and Quinn still has some speed in him. All right, it's just a matter of now Miami thinks that Quinn is healthy enough to where he'll be fine this year, thinks he's got all past his injury, so they think he's going to make a difference with his team. All right, with Danny Amendola and Albert Wilson, those are Landry's replacements right there. All right, for the price you would have had to pay for one Landry, you get 2 decent slot receivers. Okay, and with Amendola is money in the playoffs, and that's one thing that's been brought up, but Miami doesn't make the playoffs. Miami isn't a team that's consistently in the playoffs, okay? With Albert Wilson, I like that signing more than I like the Amendola signing, okay? Because with Amendola, that's a guy who is hurt most of the time, and Belichick and the Patriots did well to pretty much work around that because of the fact that they're a team that's always next man up and always ready for a plan B, C, D, E, F, G, J, K, L, M, A, Y, and Z type of thing. And I know I didn't do the whole alphabet. I know it. I sped through it. It is what it is. All right? Do not get mad at me. I know my alphabet. I'm going to have to recite the alphabet in the 4th segment just so you guys believe me. But either way, like I said, they had plan B, C, all that rest of the alphabet ready for Amendola when and if he got hurt. Okay? So even then, you could rest Amendola, throw Chris Hogan in there, have Gronk line up in his spot, all right, and it would work out. And then by the time playoffs come, Amendola's ready to go, he's healthy, and boom, dude is a monster in the playoffs. And was just had an incredible playoff run with the Patriots too. And people are like, why did he leave? I think the main reason why he left New England, came to Miami, is New England wasn't going to pay him at least what he wanted. Miami's going to give him more than what New England's going to give him. New England just doesn't pay players, and that's fine. Okay, this is why they stay so successful. And even this, it's one thing that kind of worries me. New England brings back their own, but when it's time to let them go, it's time to let them go. And maybe that's one of these things here. But either way, like I said, I like the Albert Wilson signing because I watched him a bit with Kansas City, and he's a little playmaker. All right, he doesn't have a big name or anything like that. Doesn't have big time stats. I mean, the only stat he really has comparable to Jarvis Landry is the fact that he had 2 less broken tackles than Landry. I think Landry had 17. Albert Wilson had 15 this past season. Okay. And with that, I mean, that's kind of encouraging because of the fact that Wilson got the ball a whole lot less than Landry did. I think Wilson had like somewhere between 40 to 50 catches this year, and that was a career high. So, I mean, that's one thing there. It's this guy who hasn't gotten the ball too much and hasn't been able to produce too much. But with a team like Miami, I think with the way they run their offense, I mean, you're going to see Wilson running a bit more vertical rather than side to side like how Landry did. All right, because Wilson's got speed. I think he ran like a 4.38 40 in his combine. And that's one thing that Landry lacked. He lacked speed. He was quick, but never had that true speed. And with Wilson there, I think that's going to be a bit, that's going to be good for them. So you got Wilson, you got Amendola, like I said, you got Robert Quinn. Then with the offensive lineman, Miami's offensive lineman is completely upgraded from last year. All right, no more Jermaine Bushrod. He was a bit of a off and on inconsistent player. You replace him with Josh Sitton. You got Juwan James, who they're bringing back, who I think can become a good right tackle. He's decent, but he's just got to be more consistent and stay healthy. Laramie Tunsil had a down second year, but most rookies usually do play pretty poorly in their second year. So if he picks it up, he'll be fine in his third year. Center, I mean, like I said, you cut Mike Pouncey because he didn't want to take a pay cut. And like I said, the guy's been dealing with a hip injury for the last few years. A lot of penalty issues. So you cut him. Literally, it seemed like no later than an hour after they go and they trade for Daniel Kilgore. And I like that move too. The 49ers, one thing that's kind of weird is the 49ers signed him to a 3-year extension about a month ago, I feel. All right. Gave him a 3-year extension. and then basically traded him for nothing. Swapped 7th-round picks and just traded him. And people are saying that he became more expendable because of the fact that they signed a guard who could also play center out of New York. Can't remember his name exactly, so maybe that guy's going to move to center for the San Francisco 49ers. But, I mean, listening to what fans and analysts said, I mean, Kilgore was a solid center for that team. He was consistent. He's not great or anything like that, but he's consistent. He's not going to hurt you. So even then, you finally have an offensive line for Ryan Tannehill. All right, you have receivers for Tannehill. You have an offensive line. The only thing they really got to fix up is they got to figure out what they're going to do at the defensive tackle position now that Sue's gone. Are you going to stick with Devon Godchaux? Are you going to go with Devon Godchaux, Jordan Phillips, and Vincent Taylor? Or are you going to go look into the draft for a defensive tackle? All right, maybe the guy out of Washington, I think his name is Vita Vea or something like that. I've seen him play a little bit with Washington. He's been a little solid guy there. And you got to pretty much bring in another linebacker, like a Roquan Smith type guy, Tremaine Edmonds in the draft. You got Raekwon McMillan coming back off of a torn ACL injury. In the first game of preseason last year, too, he sustained it on a special teams play. Still to this day, do not know why their starting linebacker was playing on special teams in preseason. But either way, tore his knee there, so it's going to be like his first real time with the Dolphins as far as playing goes. You got Kiko Alonso, who you gave a big contract to last year. I think it was like 4 years, something million. And Kiko Alonso's biggest problem is that he can't cover tight ends, so maybe they're going to try and find someone in the draft who could do that just to pretty much mask Alonso's deficiencies on that linebacker position. So you got that going for you. The secondary is pretty solid. You got TJ McDonald, Rashawn Jones as your starting safeties, Xavier Howard, who had a breakout year this past season, Cordrea Tankersley, who played all right as a rookie in his first year, showed flashes of what he could be. You got Tony Lippett coming off of his ACL injury, and you got Bobby McCain, who's a solid nickel corner there. So now it's just a matter of fixing up the little holes and pretty much seeing what Tannehill can do now. All right. He restructured his contract so the team had more cap relief, more cap space to work with things. And I think that's one thing there. I think he knew that they were drafting quarterbacks. Now with him restructuring, it's allowing Miami to go and get him some weapons. So even if they do draft a quarterback, whether it be the first round, second round, or whatever in the draft, Tannehill has an opportunity to be successful with the guys he's got out there. All right. And if Miami ends up keeping those 5 receivers that they got, Stills, Parker, Grant, Amendola, and Wilson, Tannehill really has no excuse as to why he can't have a big year this season. All right, he's cheap. You got all those guys. Oh yeah, Miami needs a tight end too. Maybe they look to one in the draft, or you look for an Eric Ebron type player. And Eric Ebron's been a bit of a disappointment since he got drafted by Detroit. All right, had a bunch of great players who got drafted after him, and I think he's like the 13 through 20 pick in that draft. Ebron was the 13th pick. All the picks after that up until 20 are just completely better picks than Ebron. So I'm not sure if Miami's going to go with a guy like Ebron. I mean, they went from Jordan Cameron to Julius Thomas. None of those guys worked out. Or maybe they finally look into the draft to get a guy. They haven't had a solid tight end since Randy McMichael was there. And oh boy, is that the name, quite the name drop. So Miami still got a lot to work on. But it seems like now they are pretty much that whole thing of a culture change while they were cutting Landry or trading Landry, cutting Sue and Pouncey and all those guys. Seems like it's a real thing because it's not like they're bringing in weak players. They're bringing in talent, but they're not big name guys and they're not guys that you have to pay a lot of money. Miami's finally realized that if you're the offseason champs, you're going to struggle. All right, so Miami's more so doing like what Philly is. And I'm not saying Miami's going to go out and win a Super Bowl, but Philly was bringing in guys who weren't big names, but guys who played their positions well and did their job. Kind of like a New England Patriots type of approach there. I think that's what Miami's trying to accomplish now. So we'll see what they got going on. But that's all I got to say about that. Next up, we're going to talk about all the teams that signed quarterbacks. Mentioned them all in the last show. Now we're going to talk about the quarterbacks they brought in, talk a bit about each quarterback, how they'll do, and we're going to talk about the fact that they still need to bring in these rookie quarterbacks in the draft. So we'll be doing that. So like I said, stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. So far today we've talked about the Raiders, the Dolphins, and for this segment we're going to be talking quarterbacks. Alright, quarterbacks, everyone's favorite subject. So that's what we got going on for this segment. Alright, so let's get into it. Alright, so the Bills needed a quarterback. What did they do? They signed A.J. McCarron. The Jets needed a quarterback. What did they do? They signed McCown and Teddy Bridgewater. All right. Cardinals needed a quarterback. What did they do? They signed Sam Bradford. Okay. Browns needed a quarterback. What did they do? They traded for Tyrod Taylor. Broncos needed a quarterback. They signed Case Keenum. The Vikings needed a quarterback. They signed Kirk Cousins. Had a hiccup there. Yeah, they signed Kirk Cousins. Okay. So now all the teams that needed quarterbacks have quarterbacks, but a lot of these guys that got signed or traded to or whatever aren't the future quarterbacks of these teams. Sam Bradford might see himself, if he doesn't get hurt, see himself in Arizona for a while. Kirk Cousins is obviously going to be in Minnesota for the long term. Well, he's got a 3-year deal. Keenum, if he plays well this season, could very well become the quarterback of the future for the Broncos. And it's like the Bills, Jets, and Browns. Those are the teams right there who still need quarterbacks in the draft. And even the Broncos needed their quarterback in the draft. They needed a draft somewhere. All right? But even then, so I was thinking about it too right before I started this segment. And there's a certain quarterback out there on a certain team where this all affected him. All right? And that's Nick Foles. There is no market for Nick Foles. I don't see where he could possibly go to now. Every team has their stopgap quarterback or their quarterback they feel comfortable enough with to lead them going forward. All right, Nick Foles was supposed to be the belle of the ball. Who's going to give up the first-round pick, the fourth-round pick, and whatever else Philly wants for Nick Foles? All right, and it turns out no one is. Okay, I don't see a possibility of Nick Foles leaving Philly this year. I just don't. I don't see it happening. All right, and this works out well for Philly because now with Philly, I mean, you don't have to rush Wentz back. All right? Now you can tell Wentz, you know what? Whenever you're healthy, you'll be the starter, so just get 100% and we'll be waiting for you. And with Nick Foles out there, you know you can win games. You know you can win Super Bowls with Nick Foles. All right? So, yeah, that's one quarterback out of everyone who pretty much, you could say, is the loser of all this. All right? A.J. McCarron is a winner. Tyrod Taylor is a winner. Nick Foles is a loser as far as all the quarterbacks that moved. All right, Nick Foles didn't move. He can't go to the Bills, can't go to the Cardinals, can't go to the Browns. Literally, there's no spot for him to go to. All right, no one's going to give up a first and a fourth because now every team has their quarterback. All right, so kind of feel bad for Nick Foles. I mean, he's probably, honestly, he could eventually leave the Eagles, but his value will never be as high as it was after winning the Super Bowl. And even now, so his value is not that high because every team in this league has a quarterback that they can start week 1. All right, and this is kind of, I was talking to Tate about it. I mean, this is the first time where we probably won't see a quarterback controversy. All these quarterbacks that are going to be getting drafted, I mean, they're probably going to be the backups for this year. I mean, you got Tyrod Taylor, you already got Hugh Jackson saying that Tyrod's going to be the starting quarterback for this season. There's not a competition. And I like that from Hugh Jackson. You got Louis Riddick of ESPN saying how he doesn't like the move, how there's no point in doing it. No, Tyrod Taylor is better than any quarterback coming into this draft right now. All right, these quarterbacks all need to develop. That's the truth. All right, so I like the fact that Tyrod Taylor is, without a doubt, the starting quarterback for the Browns this season. And you know what? Tyrod Taylor is in the perfect position. With Buffalo, he never really had a chance. But let's say that the Browns have a very solid team now. All right, they need to fix up the defense, and I think they'll do that through the draft. They'll probably use one of those top 4 picks on defense. But you got Carlos Hyde, Jarvis Landry, Josh Gordon, Corey Coleman, Duke Johnson, and David Njoku. Those are all weapons that, besides LaShawn McCoy, were all better than anything Buffalo put on the field last year on offense, okay? And Tyrod Taylor, believe it or not, took that team to the playoffs, okay? So with Tyrod Taylor, he's the one quarterback I think that has a true shot that could possibly, if he plays well enough and takes his Browns team to the playoffs, could keep himself as a starter going forward. And even then, so if the Browns draft a quarterback and Tyrod makes the playoffs, there's still value with him because Tyrod make the playoff 2 years in a row. Someone's going to bite and someone's going to make him their starting quarterback. All right. And like I said, talking about teams that have, like every team in this league has a quarterback already. I mean, NFC East, you got Dallas with Prescott, Eli Manning at New York. All right. Wentz, Foles in Philly, Smith in Washington. Chicago's got Trubisky. Lions got Stafford. Rodgers, Cousins for Green Bay, and Vikings. All right. NFC South, that's the cream of the crop of the quarterbacks right there. All right. Atlanta's got Matt Bryan. Carolina's got Newton. Saints got Breeze back. Tampa Bay has Jameis. NFC West, they got Bradford. Rams got Goff. 49ers got Garoppolo. Seattle's got Russell Wilson. No quarterback, rookie quarterback, beats any of those guys out. All right. None of those teams need quarterbacks. AFC East, Buffalo, they got A.J. McCarron. That's where you'll see a quarterback get drafted. All right, but A.J. McCarron's probably likely going to be the starter unless he just stinks it up in training camp. And even then, so now we're going to find out what kind of quarterback A.J. McCarron truly is. He's only played a handful of games, only started, I believe, 3 games with the Bengals. And pretty much it's like a wait and see type of deal with him. All right, now we're going to figure out if he's good or not. Miami could draft a quarterback, but Ryan Tannehill is going to be the starter week 1. That's no doubt. Obviously, that guy in New England's pretty good. I don't even have to name him. New York, the Jets, either McCown's going to be the starter or it's going to be Bridgewater. They can draft a quarterback, but that quarterback is going to be the third stringer on that roster, on that depth chart, okay? The AFC North, believe it or not, the Browns aren't the team with the worst quarterback situation in that division, all right? That's the Baltimore Ravens. Joe Flacco is bad. He is by far the worst quarterback in that division, all right? I don't care that he's won a Super Bowl. Doesn't matter to me. That's the worst thing that could have happened to the Ravens was Joe Flacco winning a Super Bowl with that team. All right, Joe Flacco, without a doubt, worst quarterback in that league. Andy Dalton, going to be the starter week 1. Tyrod Taylor, going to be the starter for this season. Pittsburgh, obviously, they got that Ben Roethlisberger guy, and I hear he's pretty good too. AFC South, Deshaun Watson, starter. All right, Colts, still waiting for luck. He'll be the guy. All right, Jacksonville, Blake Bortles is the guy. Tennessee, Mariota's the guy. AFC West, Keenum's the guy. All right, Chiefs, Mahomes is the guy. Rivers, guy in LA for the Chargers. Oakland, Carr is the guy. Are you telling me that any of these quarterbacks are better than the ones I just named? The quarterbacks in the draft, I'm meaning, are better than any of the quarterbacks I just named? They're not. All right, they're not. These quarterbacks in the draft all need to develop. The only quarterback I feel is ready to go from the get is Josh Rosen. All right, but even then, so if he's got to develop a bit, that's going to be fine for him. But like I said, there's still teams who need to draft quarterbacks. The A.J. McCarrons of the world, Tyrod Taylors, Teddy Bridgewaters, Josh McCowns, they're all solid, like nice names, but you're still going to have to draft someone in this year. All right, you're going to have to draft one quarterback. All right, and it's kind of curious to see, do the Browns, if Tyrod Taylor is their guy going forward, do they take a quarterback with the first or the fourth pick, or they just trade out of those spots? I think you're better off going with a Saquon Barkley, and I think still going with a quarterback in that fourth pick. I still think they should go, well, even then, so you sign, like, it's kind of confusing with the Browns. I thought I had an idea of what they were doing, but the fact that they signed Carlos Hyde kind of puts a monkey wrench in everything, because you already got Duke Johnson there, and it already seems like he's going to be a big part of this offense. All right, but obviously Duke Johnson more so isn't your prototypical running back. He's more of like a Tevin Coleman type, I want to say, where both are quick, both are good receiving the ball out the backfield and all that, so more so like that. But if you bring in Saquon Barkley, I mean, maybe you have him, like, you don't do that. You don't draft a running back in the top 4 to split time. That just doesn't happen. That just honestly made me change my mind about the Browns getting Barkley. I don't see Barkley going to the Browns at all. There's no way that you sign Carlos Hyde to a 3-year deal and you bring in Barkley with the first or fourth pick and have them split time. That's just not going to happen. There's absolutely no way. All right, so you know what? I don't think the Browns are taking Barkley number 1. He's probably going to end up with the Giants. He ends up with the Giants. Eli Manning is going to be so much better than what he was last year, all right? And that's one thing, too, with all these teams taking veteran quarterbacks to pretty much be the bridge guys and possibly the guys that take over for these teams, that kind of puts a monkey wrench on how many quarterbacks get drafted in the top 10. Like I said, I don't see the Browns. Well, the Browns aren't taking Barkley with either pick, I feel. That's my stone cold lock right there, all right? I don't see them taking Barkley. Could they take maybe a Josh Allen or Sam Darnold number 1 or number 4? I don't really, if they're making Tyrod the starter this season, I don't see them taking a quarterback number 1. All right, I just don't. So even then, I mean, it's kind of confusing as to see like what the Browns' plan is. I think you have to take a quarterback, but it's like if Tyrod is the starter week 1, you don't take a quarterback with the number 1 pick. Whoever you take with the number 1 pick needs to be a surefire starter. All right, so if I don't think they're taking a quarterback at Saquon Barkley, I have no clue who they take. With the 4th pick, they could very well trade out of that spot with a team like Buffalo or Miami. All right, so I mean, that's up in the air right there. Denver, do they take a quarterback now that they got Case Keenum? Possibly, but I think Denver's more so trying to win now, and taking a quarterback with the 5th pick isn't a win now move. It's a future type move, so you got them there. All right, the Jets, they got Teddy Bridgewater and McCown. I still think that the Jets take a quarterback with that 6th spot. All right, I really do. So even then, there's the first surefire quarterback, or not surefire, but there's a surefire pick right there where the quarterback comes off the board, I feel. After that, in the top 10, no one else needs a quarterback. Then you go to 11, all right? Looks like Miami is more so trying to win now and trying to fill in holes rather than trying to build for the future, all right? Restructured Tannehill, brought in Amendola Wilson, all right? Fixed up the offensive line, got Drake back there. I'm not sure if they take a quarterback at number 11, all right? If Roquan Smith or Tremaine Edmonds is there, then I say they take them. But if not, then I guess that's where you see maybe a Baker Mayfield type of guy end up in Miami, all right? Then you got Buffalo at number 12, who could very well, I think they're probably going to end up trading up into the top 10, maybe even to the top 5. All right, so that's a quarterback there. That's 2 quarterbacks for sure. I think 2 teams for sure that I think are taking quarterbacks in the first round. After that, Cardinals don't need a quarterback. All right, let's see. Cardinals don't need a quarterback now. They already got Mike Glennon as their backup. I mean, there's really... I was talking with Tate yesterday. I was still under the impression that there could be about 4 quarterbacks that go in the first round, but now I mean, I just named 2 teams who I think are for sure taking quarterbacks. After that, it's more so these teams could wait up into the 2nd and 3rd rounds and start taking quarterbacks then. You could see a team like the Jets end up with a Sam Darnold or Josh Allen, even the Buffalo Bills. All right? It's going to be really interesting. The quarterbacks, before all these quarterbacks signed with these teams in free agency, I thought that there was going to be 5 quarterbacks taken off the board in the first round, 4 actually. Lamar Jackson more so going in the 2nd round. Lamar Jackson's a guy who can go in the first round before anyone. New Orleans is a backup quarterback. Even then, boom, New Orleans is a backup quarterback. They could end up with a Baker Mayfield or a Josh Rosen if he slips that far, all right? So it's going to be real interesting to see what these teams got going on as far as their plans for the quarterback. And I'm curious to see what the Browns got going on with those first couple of picks. They're not taking Saquon Barkley. There's no way. All right. Like I said, you do not take a running back in the top 4 to have him split time with the other running back you signed for 3 years. You just don't do it that way. So, like I said, I mean, I just want to talk about quarterbacks for a bit. Going back to Nick Foles, I mean, there's no market for him. He's going to be with Philly maybe for the rest of his career. If I'm him, I'm trying to work out an extension with Philly and just be their backup quarterback unless he feels he's going to wait till next year. All right, so like I said, no real value for Nick Foles now. And as far as the quarterbacks in the draft go, I mean, there very well just might be 2 quarterbacks going in the first round, 3 at the most probably. So we'll see how it all ends up. But that's going to wrap it up for this segment. Next up, we're going to be talking Colin Kaepernick. We're going to be talking about other things going on in football and pretty much anything else that comes through my mind. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
And welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. All right, so what have we talked about today? We've talked about the Raiders, we've talked about Dolphins, and we've talked about quarterbacks. Everyone loves the quarterbacks, all right? So we talked about all that. As you know, for the 4th segment, we pretty much talk about whatever else is going on in football, doing all that. And that's what we're going to do for this segment. So let's get into it, all right? Colin Kaepernick was seen working out, private workout in Houston, not on the Houston Texans facility or anything like that, or at the Houston Texans facility, to be correct. Nothing like that. Was at a Houston private football field, whatever, all right? And there's video of him throwing the ball and all that. So it looks like Colin Kaepernick is trying to make his comeback. But the question is, will anyone sign him? All right? And one thing, too, I'm thinking, like I said earlier, Texans lost Tom Savage. He can't even remember what team he signed with. He was like the Saints or someone. So he's gone. Texans need a backup quarterback. All right? And as you know, the Texans haven't been the... how do I put this? Haven't been the model team for these players who are protesting. All right, let's just say that. All right, and like I said, they need a backup quarterback. And if they were to bring in a guy like Colin Kaepernick, that pretty much takes all the heat from everything the owner has said to all the problems that's been around as far as the protests and all that have gone in the NFL. You bring in Colin Kaepernick, that's fixes up that PR nightmare, and it fixes your backup quarterback problem. And I guess I understand that Colin Kaepernick in this video was throwing in shorts and all that. All right, pretty much like a combine type guy. But, I mean, getting a little excited with the way he was throwing the ball. Had some zip on it and was leading guys, was hitting them in the right spots, wasn't throwing it behind him, was looking pretty good. All right, and let's not act like Colin Kaepernick doesn't have talent. All right, people like to say, look at his stats and all. It weren't that bad if you pay attention to the stats. The only stats that were bad were the win-loss ones, and that's a team stat. And let's not forget, at one point, Jeremy Curley was Colin Kaepernick's number one receiver. All right, Colin Kaepernick had no help on that team. All right, is he a quarterback who's going to make players around him better? Definitely not. But you put the right players around him, and Colin Kaepernick is going to thrive. Okay, and that'd be a perfect fit with him in Houston. All right, let's say Deshaun Watson's not ready week 1 and all that. You can throw Colin Kaepernick out there, and Kaepernick's going to do just fine. All right, he's better than Tom Savage. He's better than every backup quarterback in this league. All right, he's better than some of the starters in this league, if we're being real here. All right, Colin Kaepernick still has talent. All right, last year when Miami Tannehill went down, I thought Miami should have went out and signed Kaepernick instead of Cutler. All right, Kaepernick fit that offense a whole lot more than Cutler did. Miami was more of a read option type team with Tannehill, and you can't run that with Cutler. That pretty much handicaps the offense with him out there. And with Kaepernick, you could have ran the same offense, but for some reason, Miami fell. Not some reason. I'm sure it was more Gase was familiar with Cutler, and Cutler was familiar with Gase, and Gase at one point was Cutler's offensive coordinator, and Cutler did have his best season under Gase. So maybe that's just what it was there. But Miami would have been a whole lot better if they would have brought in Kaepernick rather than Cutler. All right, so I mean, yeah, Kaepernick's out here throwing. And one thing too, like I said, I mean, why would you go all the way to Houston to go work out? All right, why not just in California? So I think there might be something there. And I really hope we see him in the league too. That'd be a shocker, honestly. Me personally, I'm under the impression that Colin Kaepernick isn't getting another shot. We all know why. All right, the whole protest and stuff like that. I just feel like that was like pretty much he sacrificed his career doing that, and I have no problem with him doing the protest either. I'm fine with the protests, all right? Because I mean, if you really know what they're truly about, then there should be no problem. But either way, I mean, everyone's got their opinion, so I'm not even getting into it too much. But like I said, Kaepernick still got talent. If he ends up with Houston, that's going to be a solid fit there. Like I said, you don't have to rush Deshaun Watson back or anything like that. He'll succeed with the talent he's got around there. All right, so Colin Kaepernick back out there working out. Baltimore, they're going to have Michael Crabtree in for a visit. All right, the whole Ryan Grant contract thing didn't work out, failed his physical, so that contract got voided. Now they're looking to bring in Michael Crabtree. This would be a good move for that team, considering the fact that Joe Flacco can't throw the ball more than 10 yards deep. All right, Joe Flacco, like I said, worst quarterback in the AFC North. It's not close. Tyrod Taylor it's hilarious. Tyrod Taylor was Joe Flacco's backup at one point. Just think about it. Watch, Tyrod Taylor. I'm going to call it now. The Browns are going to sweep the Ravens this year. All right, I'm calling it now. Do I firmly believe it? Probably not, but I feel if I call it and it happens, it's going to be a whole lot funnier to talk about. So I'm calling that now. The Browns are going to sweep the Ravens in their little season series they got going on. All right, but that's just crazy to think how Tyrod Taylor at one point was Joe Flacco's backup, and now Tyrod Taylor is a better quarterback than Joe Flacco. All right, I'll say it. I said it earlier. Say it again. I'll say it again in the future. Worst thing that could have happened to the Ravens was the fact that Joe Flacco won a Super Bowl with that team. All right. Joe Flacco at one point was a pretty decent quarterback, but he's just gotten worse and worse and worse and worse. And the Ravens are a team, where you could very well see them possibly taking a quarterback in the first round. That could be the surprise team that takes a quarterback maybe. So, I mean, you got that going on there. But as far as Michael Crabtree going to visiting with the Baltimore Ravens, that'd be a good pickup for them. All right, they've needed receivers badly for years. All right, Mike Wallace is a nice little guy there, but he's not what he once was. Even with Miami, he's not even what he was there when he with Baltimore now. All right, and Crabtree is going to make Flacco a little bit better. All right, Crabtree's pretty much going to be that little security thing for Flacco. All right, Flacco's under pressure. It's third down. Look to Crabtree, hit him. You're in the red zone. Look to Crabtree, hit him. All right, that's what it's going to be. The Ravens need to get Crabtree too because they've missed pretty much on Allen Robinson. Didn't trade for Jarvis Landry. Have missed out on Brown. All right, they have yet to hit a free agent. All right. Same with the Jets, kind of like them. The Jets struggled to find a quarterback. Now they ended up with Josh McCown and Teddy Bridgewater. Right? Couldn't get Cousins, none of the other guys. So now there's that. All right, so there's that. The Jaguars. Austin Seferian-Jenkins is going to be heading there. I like that move big time. All right, the Jaguars are being smart. Blake Bortles is our guy, kind of like with Ryan Tannehill in Miami. All right, Tannehill's not the best quarterback by any means. All right, pretty much a guy who's got the tools but hasn't put it all together. That's exactly Blake Bortles there. All right, Bortles and Tannehill are pretty much the same quarterbacks. So why don't we just put a lot of talent around them and give them the best chance to succeed? And that's what they're doing. All right, you got Marquise Lee, Dede Westbrook. You got Leonard Fournette in the backfield. You got Keaton Cole out there in receiver also. All right, now you got Austin Seferian-Jenkins, and you got the pretty much top defense in the league. All right, Jaguars are making moves to where they don't lose in the AFC Championship again. They're making moves to where they're trying to become Super Bowl contenders, and that's exactly what's going on. Jags could very well become Super Bowl contenders. I mean, they are Super Bowl contenders. They are. All right, they were up 20-10 on the Pats at one point, 14-3 I think at one point also, and they just simply blew it. All right, they were, I mean, just a solid second half game plan away from making it to the Super Bowl. And against Philly, that would have been quite the Super Bowl to watch there. All right, that would have been. It wouldn't have been high scoring. That would have been probably. I mean, the game we got with Philly and New England, that was a fun game there. All right, that's an all-time Super Bowl type game there. But with Philly and Jacksonville, I felt that would have been all defense. And me as a fan, I'm all about the defense. Give me the 14-10 game. Give me the 21-14 type game. All right, with all the sacks, all the interceptions, all of that. All right, I'd rather see that. Like in baseball, I'd rather see a good pitching duel rather than teams going 8-9 against each other, all that. All right, that's just how it is. I know it's boring, but I love defense. So you got that. Like I said, with the Jaguars, they're being smart, all right? Blake Bortles is our guy, so let's put solid talent around him. Austin Seferian-Jenkins played well with the Jets, okay? That was Josh McCown's favorite target, I feel, besides Robbie Anderson. Once you got to the red zone, you knew they were looking for Seferian-Jenkins, and it looks like he's finally got his head on straight and all that, all right? And he played well with the Jets, like I said, so I like what the Jaguars are doing. They're going to put weapons around him, and Bortles has to have all the confidence in the world, all right? Played well in the playoffs, quieted the doubters a bit, and got a nice little contract from them. All right, and now they're trying to build an offense around him and make him better. Going into next season, he's got to realize, you know what? I can play well, but I also need to take off with the ball a few times. That worked out well for them in the playoffs against the Bills and against the Steelers. All right, his running was huge, so I really like what the Jaguars got going on there. Jason McCourty, I believe that's his. Is it Jason McCourty or is it the other brother they got? Either way, the Patriots have both McCourty brothers. The Browns traded him over there. Got a couple of picks, I think. We're going to release him, but I don't know. They found something for him. And then the Redskins signed linebacker Zach Brown. Looked like he was going to end up going to the Raiders and Dolphins, kind of like how last year was, but nonetheless, Washington gave him a 3-year extension. Washington's a team that could win some games next year, all right? I really like Alex Smith. Think he's a good quarterback, so it's going to be interesting to see how that team plays out. But that's pretty much all I got to talk about for this segment, all I got left to talk about. I'm sure next week we're going to have more free agent news and all that. And Dominican Sue on today, which is Friday, or tomorrow, which is Friday. I got my days all mixed up this week. Tomorrow should be meeting with the Saints, I believe it is. He's already met with the Seahawks and talked with Pete Carroll. If he goes to the Seahawks, that's going to be a big pickup there. That's going to fix up a lot of problems on that defense already. Sue's a game changer on defense. Like I said, well, Miami didn't really affect wins and losses too much, but he does change the defense. And Michael Crabtree's going to be meeting with the Ravens on Friday too. So that's going to wrap it up for today's show. Today we talked about the Raiders, the Dolphins, quarterbacks, and for this thing we talked about Colin Kaepernick and all the other news and notes as far as free agency goes. So thanks for listening to the GSMC Football Podcast. As always, I am your host, Jesse Tapia. We'll be back next Tuesday with more news, so stay tuned, and we'll talk to you later.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.